And I'm gonna say that your test is on next Tuesday. It's gonna be from chapter P1 to P6 is Tuesday at noon. You got 24 hours to do it. And you'll be due on the Wednesday on the noon time. So please scan it if you have any questions. And some of you scan some stuff for me and send to me, which is perfect. I always look at your stuff and see if you got it or not. So make sure you have your questions if you have any questions for me. So let's finish up P5 first, and then we'll go through some of the questions, 23, 24, 25, 26. So in P5, we talk about domain last time, and then I teach you how to simplify a rational expression using factoring. So this is what we did last time. So we're gonna continue with how do we add and subtract, and then we do what we call as a complex fraction. So for this case, this is an addition and subtraction. So how do we do an addition and subtraction here is we have to find the LCD. And how do you find your LCD is looking your denominator. And what you do first is if you can factor your denominator, you factor it. But unfortunately, these two denominators you cannot factor, and there is no common factor here. So your LCD will consist of these two binomials, 2x minus 1 and x plus 2. And then what you do like last time in fraction, you compare the LCD with the denominator. Let's say this denominator is missing x plus 2 if you compare it with the LCD. Then you have to multiply x plus 2 here so that this denominator looks exactly the same as your LCD. Since you multiply x plus 2 on the denominator, you have to do the same thing to the numerator. And then the same thing happens to the other fraction. You have x plus 2. And what is missing in this LCD is 2x minus 1. So you have to multiply 2x minus 1. And this is something that someone who did the homework knows this. Be careful with this negative. The reason why is you have to distribute this. So that's the one thing that a lot of students make mistake in the test for this kind of questions is a lot of students make mistake here is because they did not distribute the negative. What do I mean by that is when the first one here in the numerator, you distribute your x, so you got x with the x and x plus 2, so you got x squared plus 2x. But this is the one that I'm pointing out to you guys is you have to distribute the negative that I have here. I move it up here, so you can tell that I move the negative up there. So what you need to do here is you have to distribute him. You have to distribute. So this is one big common mistake students do, and as you guys know that if you didn't do this, everything is wrong. So once you distribute the negative, you will get negative 2x plus 1, and then over here you combine like terms. So always in the numerator you always combine like terms, and then if you can, you factor it. Your denominator in this case will be your LCD, and keep it as a factor form. That means don't FOIL it out. And then after that, so I combine the 2x and they can be 0 up. So I get an x squared plus 1. Unfortunately, x squared plus 1 cannot be factored. So, so that's the reason why we leave it as your answer like this. If this can be factored and you can cancel with the denominator, then you have to do so. So this is how we do, how we add and subtract rational expression, which is a lot of work. It's not easy. So you can tell it by looking at this. Someone typed something in the chat. It took me an hour to figure out how one homework calculus of this. Yes, Havlin, you are correct, because this section is very difficult, and that's the reason why that we will go over this a bit more than going P6. We can spend a bit less time on it because P6 you guys can pick it up very easily. Example again is like question 9. Question 9, you get this denominator. First thing is you have to find your LCD. So what do you need to do first is you have to factor. So this one can be factored. The x squared minus 4 can be factored because it's a perfect square of x plus 2 and x minus 2. So what we have now is this denominator x, the x plus 2 and x minus 2 and x plus 2. So how do we find the LCD if you have an x plus 2, x minus 2, and x plus 2 is you look at the common one. So in this case, you find out that the common factor here is x plus 2. See that x plus 2 show up twice. So you just need to put this down one time. And then the remaining factor, which is the x minus 2 and x, will be like put it right next to it. So this is how you find your LCD in this case. If you have a lot of like 3 LCDs here, 3 denominators here. So in this case, in order to factor first the first case and then look out who is the same factor. So like x plus 2 is the same one, you put it one time, and these are the leftover, you chuck it over there. And then what you need to do next is compare each one of these to your denominator here. So this is x. So so what is missing here is x minus 2 and x plus 2 because the denominator is just only have x. So you have to multiply x minus 2 and x plus 2 to the top and the bottom. And then this middle term is missing the x term because it does have x plus 2 and x minus 2. So you need to multiply x on both sides. For the last fraction is missing x and x minus 2. So you have to multiply x and x minus 2 here. And in this case, you have to distribute and you have to combine like terms. So that's a lot of work here. That's the reason why that this section is very difficult. So in this case, I will FOIL out I FOIL the x minus 2 and x plus 2, which gives us x squared minus 4. And then I distribute the 4 inside. And then the same thing happens to my x, I distribute it. So this is, in this case, I distribute my terms inside. And then once I distribute, I combine like terms. This is combining like terms. And then after that, we left with this 7x squared minus 13x minus 16. And we try to factor this. That's why I try to factor this follow-up. And what I can tell you is this cannot be factored. So once this cannot be factored, then this is your answer in this case. Okay. Yes, this is a very difficult question. So we'll look at some examples in your homework that looks something like this. We start out with question like number 18. Now, number 18 is a little bit easy. The reason why I say 18 is a little bit easy is because the denominator is the same. So if your denominator is the same, you do not need to find the LCD because the LCD is the same as x plus 9. But the numerator, the top one, you have to add them. In this case, you have to add. So when you add, you do not need to worry about distributing the negative that I just told you in the previous question. So what you do here is you do 6x minus 2, and then you plus 2 minus x. So you just rewrite this whole thing. If it's a plus sign in the middle like this, you can just do it like that. Just put those two together. And then you combine like terms. So in this case, you will get 5x. Because 6x minus x is 5x. You find out that the 2 and the minus 2 will be 0 up. And then this will become x plus 9. So this is how, and then this one we cannot do any simplify anymore because 5x cannot be factored. And please do not cancel the x here because it's no good. In order for you to cancel, it has to be factored. But since this cannot be factored, then this will be your final answer for number 18. Okay. Then if you go through to do number 19, now 19 is a little bit tough here is because the denominator is not the same. So in order for us to do 19, you have to find the LCD. And how do we find LCD is we factor the denominator. But the good news is these two denominators cannot be factored and they are not the same, a common factor in this case. So your LCD is this both, x plus 4 times with x minus 1. So this is how you find LCD. Same thing with fractions. If you remember fractions, if you have 1/5 plus 1/4, so the LCD here, because 5 and 4 has nothing in common that you can factor out. So how do you find the LCD if you have 5? This case is you multiply the 5 and the 4, so you get 20. So this is a kind of like the same question on number 19 because these two have nothing in common. So how do you find your LCD? You just multiply the x plus 4 and x minus 1 together. So in this case, your denominator should become x plus 4 and x minus 1. And what is missing on the first term or first fraction here is it does have x plus 4 here. It's missing x minus 1. So you will have to multiply the x minus 1 on the top. Okay, so that's the reason why that for question 19, this is missing the x minus 1. And don't forget you have a -6 here. So this -6 will be over here. And what is missing on the second term, if you compare with your LCD, is x plus 4. So you will be multiplying this by x plus 4. And what you need to do next here is to distribute this and then combine like terms. And then x times x is x squared. X times -1 is -x. And then -6 times x is -6x. And -6 times 4 is -24. And you notice that, again, this middle term can be combined to become -7x. And then this is going to be the same as LCD. I just put LCD here, which is the same as this, the one that we have. I'm lazy to rewrite. It's hard to write with my mouse. And then what you need to do next is try, because this is a trinomial here, so you might need to factor this. And it can be prime, so I do not know. And the good news about factoring here is this is 1. So, so in this case, you can figure out what times what is 24. Can someone tell me what is the factor for 24? What times what is 24? Beside 1 and 24? Anyone? Yep. 1 and 24, yep. You guys good? 8 and 3. One more. Yep, 8 and 3, not 8 and 4. 8 and 4 doesn't. 6 and 4, yep, you guys are good. Yep. Yep, 2 and 12, very good. You guys are good. Yep. Sorry, my 12. So we're gonna have, this is all the factors for it, sorry. So what you do here is you just figure out, you need to get -7x. So this one doesn't work because if you add them or subtract them, you won't get -7x. Okay. Yep, 8 and 3, I got it. 8 and 3 and 3 and 8 are the same, so you don't worry about that. 8 and 3, we cannot get 7x here too. The reason why is because -7x, because if you add this, you get 11. When you subtract this, you only get 5. So you don't get 7x. This one also doesn't get 7x because when you add 6 and 4, you get 10. And when you subtract 6 and 4, you get 2. And the last one also no good because when you add this, it becomes 14. And when you subtract this, it becomes 10 or -10. So we cannot get -7x. So your answer in this case will be x squared minus 7x minus 24 all over by x plus 4 and x minus 1. So your answer in this case is really long because you cannot factor it. And again, if you cannot factor it, you cannot cancel anything. Okay, so your answer will be x squared minus 7x minus 24 over by x plus 4 and x minus 1. So this is how we do this kind of question. That's why it takes you around a longer time, like what Evelyn say. Yep, it takes you like hours to figure it out. So that's the reason why that it's hard. I didn't say this is easy, okay? And there is no shortcut. This is the only way to do this kind of question, okay? So if you go on to like question number 20, oh, sorry, on the wrong. If you click to do number 20, so the first thing you guys need to do here is to factor denominator. So can someone tell me which one of these can be factor? X squared minus 4, x plus 2. Can someone tell me which one here can be factor? This is 5. This is 2, and this is 5. Which one can be factor? Yep, x squared minus 4 can be factor. You are correct. And the factor for x squared minus 4, does anyone know how to factor x squared minus 4? Yep, you guys good? Yep, that one can be factor. You're correct. And what is the factor for x squared? They are perfect squares. They are binomial perfect squares. So what you get when you factor him? Yep, you will get the perfect square of x plus 2 and x minus 2. Yep, this is the correct one. So you got x plus 2 and x. This is your first step to do when you guys do the find a LCD, because you are adding different denominator. And next, what we do here is you have to find your LCD here. So once you get this factor out, now we need to find your LCD. Does anyone know how to find your LCD here? Now we're talking about LCD. Yep, you guys are good. Very good. You guys know the factor. Good. Happy. Very happy you guys know the factor. And class, as I told you, this factoring stuff is not just for this class, it's for the future. When you go to college algebra, trigonometry, calculus, you need to know how to factor this, okay? So now we're talking about LCD here. Does anyone here know how to find LCD once you finish factoring the x squared minus 4, which is x plus 2 and x minus 2? Remember what I told you about if they're having the same one? If they're having the same common factor, what do I say early on if they have the same common factor? Anyone know what's the LCD here? Anyone? X minus 2 is partially correct, Devin. X plus 2 and x minus 2 is the correct LCDs, I do. So in this case, that because that you have this at the x plus 2 is a common one, so you have to write it down as one time, okay? And then the leftover, which is the x minus 2, will be over here. So this is the LCD in this case is x plus 2 and x minus 2. The common one only write it one time, and then x minus 2 write one more time, leftover. And what we do next here is we multiply. So we have figured out what is missing compared to the denominator LCD. Now the first fraction is good because it has both the LCD. So you do not need to multiply anything on the first one. The second one, you have to multiply this with x minus 2 because it's missing x minus 2 if you compare with the LCD. So if you are multiplying x minus 2 on the bottom, you have to also multiply it to the top. Okay, so what we have now is your denominator is all going to be the same as your LCD. Okay. Now your numerator, you just need to distribute the 5 to the x minus 2 here. The 2 is still there. So 2 plus 5x minus 2. No, not minus 2, minus 10, right? Because 5 times 2 is 10. I'm talking about. This is 10 here. And then lastly, what you need to do here is you have to make this as a you have to factor this, not factor, combine like terms. So 5x is still 5x. And then 2 minus 10, 2 minus 10 is a negative 8. Okay, so 2 take away 10 is negative 8. And then you have an LCD of x plus 2 and x minus 2, the same as what we have early on here. And then we try to factor 5x minus 8, but 5x minus 8 cannot be factored. So if this cannot be factored, then this will be your answer in this case. You guys doing okay here so far? Tough? Yeah, so yep, I can tell you that you will get this kind of like question 20 in your test on Tuesday because you required to do a little bit more work, actually a lot of work. But I won't come up question 21 in your test, okay? 21 is a very difficult question. I won't come up that kind of questions. I think someone asked 23. So I won't do like 3 fraction like this. Okay, I only come up 2. Okay, so I only come up 2 fractions like this. I don't come up 3. So in the test, you won't see something like 21 or 22. Okay, so let's do 21 is more difficult than 22. So I will do 21 here, and you guys go ahead and do 22 at home. I think you guys know watch it symbol, right? So if you are kind of stuck with your questions, watch it and they will show it to you. So I will do 21. 22 is a bit easier because the LCD is already given here. Okay, but for 21 it's a little bit tough. So negative 2x is what we have. We cannot do anything in the denominator. Plus 13 x squared plus 1. Again, we cannot do anything in x squared plus 1. And the reason why we cannot factor this is because we have a positive sign. If this is a negative sign, then you can factor it. And then plus 2. Now the back one, we can factor this. Can someone know how to factor x cubed plus x? This one can be factored. Anyone know what's the factor for x cubed plus x? And I can tell you that if you do not know the factor, just look at the first one and the second one. If you look at the first one and the second one, yep, and that was your answer. So in this case, it will be x squared plus 1. Yes, for this class, you will notice that the factor for the x cubed plus x, yep, is the same thing as those two together, x and x squared plus 1. So mostly, same thing happens when you look at this question 22. What's a factor for x squared minus 1? I can tell you it's going to be x plus 1 and x minus 1. They make the question a bit more easier here so that it's not going to be as tough. So now we need to find the LCD because now we got the factor done. So as I told you before, LCD, if this is common, so you have to write this as 1 time. And also this is common because they are the same. And you just need to write this 1 time. Now, the thing about this question is there is no leftover. Remember last question, we have some leftover that we chuck it to the back here. This question has no leftover because all of these terms or factors has been used. So that is your LCD in this case. So what we do next is figure out what is missing on the first term compared to the LCD. You have x, so you are missing x squared plus 1. So you have to multiply this also by x squared plus 1. This is only missing the x term. So you have to multiply this by x. This one has everything in there, so you do not need to multiply everything in there. So now what you have here is your denominator is your LCD. These are 3 of them. And now what you need to do on the numerator here is you have to distribute your negative 2. So negative 2x squared minus 2, and then plus 13x, and then plus 2. Don't forget the plus 2 behind there. Okay, and then you combine like terms. This 2 and this 2 can be canceled out. And then what we left is just negative 2x squared plus 13x. And now you need to factor this. And this is a 2 term because the 2 is canceled out. So when you factor this, the x is in common. So you can factor the x out. And then when you factor the x out from negative 2x, you get negative 2x. And when you factor x out from 13x, you get positive 13. So this is how you have to factor out your x in this case. And your denominator, which is that same as LCD, is x and x squared plus 1. And what do you notice now is you can cancel because we can we did factoring. So in this case, your x can be canceled. So this left over is your answer. You guys with me here? Okay. You guys have any questions so far with adding and subtracting rational? So yeah, it is tough. Can tell you this is not easy. This is very tough. Okay. And the last one is even more difficult. I always keep the last one. Is we're gonna talk about complex fraction. Okay. So a complex fraction is the last one that we're gonna talk about. Now, what is a complex fraction? A complex fraction is a fraction over by a fraction. That means you got fractions on the numerator. You can have a fractions on the denominator or both numerator and denominator. This is what we call as complex fraction, means you got x plus 2 over x over by 3x plus minus 2 over 4x. This is what we call as complex fraction. 1 over x plus 2 over 3x minus 1. This is also called a complex fraction. So as long as you see a fraction on top of a fraction, then inside a fraction, then we have what we call as a complex fraction. So how do we simplify a complex fraction? Is this is how we simplify it, is to make this as a single fraction. Okay. What is a single fraction? A single fraction will look something like this. This is what we call as a single fraction, where is my, sorry, where did it go? Okay, so this is the single fraction here, the one over here. The reason why I say this is a single fraction is because everything is aligned on like a 4-story building. Like this is the first story, second story, third, fourth, like a 4-story building. This is called single fraction. The other one is not single fraction. Okay, the reason why is because of the 1 minus x, make him not a single fraction. So how do we convert not a single fraction to a single fraction? Is you kind of add these two up. You add like what we did just now, find the LCD, multiply it, like what we just did over here. But the addition here is more simple than question 21. And then once you add them up, then you become a single fraction. And the key about single fraction here is, this is the key, is you can change the division. So this is how we do it. You change the division to become multiply. And then you just flip-flop the denominator fraction. So what you do here is once you get yourself a single fraction like this, you change the division over to multiplication, and then you flip-flop the 3x minus 2 over 4x to 4x over 3x minus 2. And then after that, you factor it. Then you factor, and then you cancel the common factor. So that's the reason why, so it's quite a bit more work, but actually if you this is actually a bit easier, depends on the question, compared to the other previous sessions that we do. So for example is question 10. So this is what we call as a complex fraction. So how do we find the complex fraction? First figure out what is the LCD for this, the top one, okay? And the LCD for the top one in this case is x plus 2. That is the LCD for the top one. So what you do is, because this one is over 1, so so you multiply the second one by x plus 2, because this one already have x plus 2. So so your denominator is x plus 2, then you just distribute like what we did previously. So 1 plus x plus 2, and then you kind of simplify it to become x plus 3 over x plus 2. And then you do the same thing on the denominator, which in this case is LCD here is 3. So in this case, you just need to multiply this by 3. So what you got here is x minus 3 over 3. So this is what we call as a single fraction, because it is all like, like a 4-story building. So what do I do with this single fraction is I take the division and change it into multiplication, and then we flip-flop the denominator. So your x minus 3 over 3 become 3 over x minus 3. And then after that, you simplify this. Since you cannot factor this and there's nothing in common, so you just rewrite it as 3x plus 3, x minus 2, x minus 3. And please do not, like previously, do not distribute, do not FOIL. Okay, so don't spend your time to distribute and FOIL here. Okay. Same thing happens for question number 11. You have to find the LCD in this case for the top one, and the LCD in this case is x. So in this case, we'll have 2 minus 3x over x. The bottom one, the LCD in this case will be x minus 1. So I will multiply the first one by x minus 1. The second one, we already have x minus 1. So we have x minus 1 minus 1. And x minus 1 minus 1, the minus 1 can be cancelled. So what we have in this case is 2 over 3x over x. No, not cancel, become minus 2, sorry. So this become x negative minus 2 over x minus 1. And then as usual, we just do the same thing. You take the division, change your multiplication, and then you flip-flop this. And then after that, there's nothing you can cancel here. You just rewrite that. That's your answer. Okay. So mostly this is how we do the complex fraction in this case. So, so we're gonna talk about that in your homework here. So when you have a complex fraction like number 23, someone asked 23 and 24. So this is how we do complex fraction here. So, so what we do in this case is for 23, you just need to find the top one is good to go because that's not a fraction, because it's x plus 9. The bottom one is the one that you have to figure out because it's a fraction down here. So this 9 that you have over here is over 1. So this is good to go. This one you need to find your LCD. And the LCD here is easy because it is 9, because between 9 and 1 is 9. So what you need to do here is this already have 9. So this one you need to multiply by 9. So what we have in this case is x plus 9 over by, sorry, long over, sorry, yeah. Over by x minus 9 over, minus 81, sorry, minus 81 over 9. Okay, so is, so x minus 81, 9 times 81, and then over 9. And then this is what I just told you before is this division will change to become multiplication. So the x plus 9 is still on the top, but the division will change to multiply, and then you flip-flop the denominator. 9 over x minus 81. And unfortunately, x minus 81 cannot be factored. So what you guys need to do is just put the 9 in front and then multiply that with x plus 9, because this one is on the top. Don't distribute it, just leave it like this. And then x minus 81. So this is your answer for question number 23. You do not need to do factoring because there's no factoring. You cannot factor neither one of those, and you cannot cancel anything off here because it cannot be factored. Okay, so this is how we do question number 23. Question number 24. This is already in a single fraction. Yes, you will get 23 or 24 in your test, but 24 is easy. 24 is easier than 23. The reason why I say 24 is easier than 23 is because 24 is already in what we call as a single fraction. So this is already in a single fraction. So what you do here is you just need to do take the division, change it to multiplication, and then flip-flop the denominator. So that is a long division. I'll change it to multiplication, and then I flip-flop the denominator. Now for question 24, what you need to do next is you have to factor. So x squared minus 36 can be factored. So can someone tell me what is a factor for x squared minus 36? What is a factor for this? This is easy. Yep, x plus 6 and x minus, you are good. You guys are really, really good. In fact, I'm very happy. So, yep. So this is x plus 6 and x minus 6. Very good. And then what you do next is you will have to cancel. Now something can be canceled. For example, your x here can be canceled. Now this x minus 6 can be canceled with this x minus 6, but the square here means that you just need to multiply it twice, like x minus 6 and x minus 6. This is the meaning of it. So when you have when you cancel with x minus 6 here, you only cancel with 1. So you still left with another x minus 6. So what is your answer for question 24 is on top you left with x plus 6. And on the bottom you left with x minus 6. And that's nothing you can cancel here. So please do not cancel your x or your 6 here, become -1. You get it all wrong. So this is your answer for question 24. You guys doing all right here? Next will be 25 and 26 because these are the questions that you guys asked me. So, so 25, if you look at question 25, and yes, 25 and 26 is not in your tab, so don't worry about these two questions, 27. So what you do here is the question wants you to factor the smaller exponents. So if you look at this, between x squared minus 7 to the power of -6 and x squared minus 7 to the power of 5, they want you to factor out the smaller exponent. So the smaller exponent in this case is going to be the -6. So this question wants you to factor out x squared plus 7 to the power of -6. So they want you to factor this one out because that's the smallest exponent. And once you finish factor it out, so what left over is when you factor the x squared minus 7 to the power of 6 on the first term, you left with x squared. Plus, now this is a tricky part. When you factor out x squared plus 7 to the power of -6 from this power 5, so what you guys need to do is, I'll give you an example last time. When you do x3 and x squared, you factor out x squared, right? And you left with x plus 1. This is what you guys did last time, right? And how do we know this is x to the power of 1 is you take this power and you take that power and you minus it, right? 3 minus, it's always like that. In order for us to figure out if this is a power 8, then 8 minus 2, this is a power 6. This is usually what we do. So same thing happens in here. So this is a 5, this is a -6, so we're gonna subtract. So what happens when you take the 5 here minus with a -6? So that become a plus because 2 negative become a plus. So this is actually is 11. So what we have in this case is if you factor x squared plus 7 to the power of 5 and you take -6 out, you will get x plus 7 to the power of 11. And the 11 comes from the 5 minus -6, or in this case, 5 plus 6. And this is not done yet. It's because this fellow is negative exponents. So do you guys remember what happens to negative exponents in the previous, like last week? What do we do with negative exponents? Anyone know what happens to him? We don't like negative exponents. What do you do with him? Yes, fraction. You're correct. We put it in the denominator. Yeah, yes, Evelyn, everyone has different questions, but they're having very similar numbers. So all questions are different. Yep. If they are the same, then you guys can just not do it and call someone else. Hey, what's question 25? What's the answer for 25, 26? If you get all same question, or everyone is different. Okay. So your final answer for this question 25 in this case is gonna be x squared on top. And then also x plus 7 to the power 11. X squared, sorry, there's a square inside there. I didn't see the square. And then the x squared plus 7 to the power of 6 will be down there. And this is your answer here. And you, again, you cannot cancel anything. Okay, so it's a bit one big chunky answer here in this case. Yeah. Talk to me, Zach, after class. Talk to me after class. So this is how we do question 25. And again, I told you already, 25, 26, 27 is not going to be in your test. So so do not worry about doing so don't worry about that. Same thing with 26. You have the same question here is they want you to factor the smaller exponents. So in this case, the x minus 9 to the power of -1/2 is the smallest exponent. So you will have to factor that fellow out. And what you left here is 3x to the power of 6. And remember last time when you have this, we subtract it. So you take 1/2 minus with another -1/2. And then this 2 negative will become plus. So actually this is exactly 1 because 1/2 plus 1/2 is exactly 1. So in this case, you will get x minus 9 to the power of 1. Okay, or you do not need to write that, it's fine because it's just telling us -5. And then this x minus 9/2 is already factored out. So you do not need to do anything. So this is your, and then remember last time the negative here, you can always put it down in the denominator. So you over, so this one goes down like the previous one. X minus 9 to the power of 1/2. Do you guys remember what happens when you have a power of 1/2 from your previous, like the first homework? You guys know what happens? 1/2, you can change it to a kind of like a radical or root. Can someone tell me what 1/2 here can change into? This is back to like first day or first week of class actually. Remember, x to the 1/2 is something. You remember that? It's a good reminder because your test, you'll see all this thing popping up. This is the same thing as the square root of x. Okay, don't forget. Yep, 1/2 means square root. If you have 1/3, then it is a cube root of x. You guys with me here? So what do I do here is I will change this 1/2 to become square root. So this is your answer in this case. 3x6, x minus 9. The 1 you can ignore it if you want to, because 1 is -5. Again, the parentheses, the brackets here, you can ignore it too because I just use it to factor. So you can ignore that. So this is your answer for question number 26. Yeah, you guys all right? Any questions so far? 27 is kind of the same thing as 26. And then let's say that you have x4. So let's say you do exactly the same thing. What happens to this x4? You just chuck it down here. Like that. I can tell you it looks something like that. Okay. So this x4, you just do the top one, just do the same thing as what I just did in 26. And then the x4, you just put it, and then you take the square root, and then you just put it right in front of it. So the x4 here is just you put an x4 there. Okay, so 26 and 27 kind of the same. Okay, 28. This is very tough. Rewrite the difference of quotient by rationalizing the numerator. So this is rewrite the difference. Okay, so how we do question 28 is you have to. This is tough. Is you have to do what we call as rationalizing the numerator. How do we rationalize the numerator? Is you take your numerator and you multiply by the conjugate. I don't know, you guys still remember conjugate? Anyone still know what conjugate means? Anyone know conjugate? A plus B, the conjugate will be what? What's the conjugate for A plus B? Anyone know what's the meaning of conjugate? Okay, conjugate means that you take the sign and you flip it. So if A plus B, then it is A minus B. Okay, and that's the meaning of conjugate. Okay, so conjugate means that you take your middle sign and switch it around. And do you know what happens when you multiply A plus B and A minus B? If you multiply these two up, you notice that the middle term will be gone. They will cancel. So you will get A squared minus B squared. So this is the same thing with question 28. So what you need to do here is you have to find what is the conjugate of the numerator. So what's the conjugate for this case? As I told you, the conjugate is exactly the same. You just need to change the sign. So the conjugate here will be square root of x plus 8 plus square root of x. So you just change the sign. And as fraction, if you multiply something on the top, you have to multiply the same thing on the bottom. So you have to do the same thing on the bottom. Okay. So so this is actually is 1 because they are exactly the same thing, and anything multiplied by 1, you get back the same thing. So that's the reason why that you won't change this question if you multiply this by 1. Okay. So what you do here is you have to FOI this follow-up. But as I told you, when you FOI, you just do the first and the last because the middle term will cancel. So you do the first. So square of x plus 8 times square of x plus 8, the square root will cancel. You just get x plus 8. And then you do the last. Negative square of x plus times square of x, you will get negative x. Okay, so what happened when you multiply by the conjugate, especially they have square root like this, they will kind of negate everything out. And make sure there's a minus sign in the middle because negative times positive is negative. Now the denominator, you do not need to distribute or FOI. You just rewrite this as 8x plus 8 square root and then plus square root of x. You just rewrite this. You do not need to do anything on it. And the reason why is you'll see right here. So you find out that when you simplify this, your x and your x will be canceled. And also you find out that you have 8 and 8 is being canceled. So what you left, if you cancel everything on top, you just left with 1. So your answer in this case will be 1 over square root of x plus 8 plus square root of x. So this is how we do question number 28, how we rationalize this. Okay, so I will recommend you guys to try again. There are a lot of watch it here. So if you are stuck, watch it or ask me questions. But as I told you already, question number 25, 26, 27, 28 is not going to come up in your test. Like 24, 23, yes, it's going to come up in your test. So make sure you know you practice, especially 23. I will tell you that it looks something like 23 in your test. Okay, so practice. So practice what happens if this x minus 9 is on top. So you just change this x minus 9, put it on top. And then what happens when you put both x minus 9 on it and see what's going on. So I will recommend you to play with it. Okay. Lastly, we have to talk about here is P6. We talk about a rectangular coordinate system. So I think everyone here should know how to plot a coordinates point, x, y. If you don't know how to plot it, please go and watch videos. It's very easy. We have 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. The mid, right in the 0, 0, the coordinates, we call it as the origin. And this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis. I think a lot of people know how to plotting points. The main part is to use the distance formula and midpoint formula. Yes, these 2 formulas, you have to either know it or memorize it. How do we use this? Okay, the formula distance means that if I give you 2 points, you need to find what is the distance between these 2 points. The formula is square root of x squared minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. It looks very similar like your Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals to c squared. I just take the square root, so it looks like that. And then the midpoint formula is right in the middle. So if I give you 2 points, midpoint means it's right in the middle of that point. So how do we find the middle of these 2 points? Is you kind of average it. So to find the midpoint, you take x1 and x2 added up and divided by 2. And then you do the y1 and y2 added up and divided by 2. So these are the 2 formulas we will be using. Plotting this, I think you guys managed to do this one easily. So I won't go through this with you guys for example 1. This is the one that we talk about the midpoint and the distance. So if I give you these 2 coordinates, you have to find the distance and midpoint. So the first thing I recommend you to label, the first one is x1, y1, x2, y2. So how do we find the distance is you subtract. You take x2 minus x1 and then you square it. -3 minus 3 and then you square it, which is a -6, and then after that you get 36. I just want to point out to you that this number is always going to be positive because you cannot have a negative square root in there. And why I say it has to be positive is because every time when you square anything, including a negative, they will always become a positive. So this is how we do the x. And then you do the same thing for the y. So you take 0 minus 1, which is -1, and then you square it, and that becomes 1. And then 36 plus 1 is 37. And then you need to simplify this. Unfortunately, 37 cannot be break it down, so that is your answer, square root of 37. But what happens when you have a square root of 20? Then you have to simplify it to become 20 is 4 times 5. And 4 is a perfect square of 2. So that will give me 2 square root of 5. So this is what I mean by simplify. So if you have a square root of 20, you have to do this. You have to break it down to 4 and 5, and then bring up the 4 to become 2. So this is the meaning of simplify, but 37 cannot be simplified because it is a prime number. And then you also need to find midpoint. So how you find midpoint is add your x coordinates up, divide by 2. So 3 plus -3, which is 0, divide by 2, which is 0. And then you do the same thing for your y. 1 plus 0 is 1, and then divide by 2 is 1/2. So this is how you find the distance and midpoint. Very straightforward type questions. So what is the word problems you will get when you have midpoints is you have to show that these three coordinates points are a right triangle. So what you need to find is you have to figure out 3 distance. The first distance is between 2, -1 and 5, 5. The second distance is between 5, 5 and 6, -3. And then you find the third distance, which is between 2, -1 and 6, -3. So you have to find the distance for 3 of them. And then once you find 3 of them, the first one is your A, the second one is your B, the longest one, make sure the longest one is your C. This is the Pythagorean theorem, if you remember. C is your hypotenuse, is always the longest one. And A and B in this case are your legs because they are shorter. And then how do you prove it is a right triangle? You have to use Pythagorean theorem to prove it, which is A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. This is, I think everyone should know the Pythagorean theorem. So what you do here is this Pythagorean theorem. So you take the A squared plus B squared, it should be equal to C squared. So when you take 45 squared plus 20 squared, if you square and square it will cancel out. So you notice that 45 plus 20 is 65. So that is how we prove that this is these 3 coordinates points are right triangle. And if you did not get 65 when you add these 2, it means something is wrong with your distance formula. So I would recommend you guys to work on it, the distance formula. Same thing happens to question 4. This is where they want you to throw. So a quarterback is on 10-yard lines, on 10 yard from the start line, means 10-10 means that's a coordinate 10-10. And it receive a wide from 32-yard line, 25 yard from start line. So the coordinate here is 25-32. So the start line is always your x in this case. And the question is asking for how long is the pass. So you just need to do the distance formula. So again, x1 minus x2 minus x1. So 25 minus 10, which is 15, and then you square it, 225, unit calculator here. And then y2 minus y1, 32 minus 10, square it, 22, you square it, become 484. Add it becomes 709, and then yes, this is where you use your calculator to do square root of 709, which is a 26.62. Okay, so mostly, sometimes the question, the word problem on this time is sometimes they ask you for the distance, how long it is, and sometimes the question asks you for the midpoint. Okay, so so like they say this year is 7.2, 2010 is 6.3. What do you assume for 2009? So what you do is you find the midpoint. So you just add the two numbers up and divide by 2. So it's around 6.75 million. So it's pretty much very common here. And then the last question is a parallelogram has this 4 dots, a 4 coordinates point. Shift the parallelogram 2 units to the left and 4 units down, and then find the vertices of this one. So when you shift 2 units to the left, when you go left, all your x value should be -2. And then you say you go 4 units down, means all your y value has to be -4. So what do I do is I take this coordinates point, I -2 on the x, and then I -4 on the y. So 1 minus 2 is -1, and then 0 minus 4 is -4. I do the same thing for each and every single coordinates point here, and then you just give me the new one. So like this case, 1 minus 2 is -1, 4 minus 4 is 0. And then you do the same thing for all 4 of this. You keep on -2 and -4. And then you just plot these 4 points, which is the blue one. And then after that, you plot these 4 points, which is the pencil one, the black one. And then you notice that this one do move 2 to the left and then 4 down. So all these coordinates point, if you move 2 left, 4 down, the blue will become the black, the pencil ones. Okay. So so this is how it's very P6 is not very tough. The only difficult part is the distance formula that we talk about here. So it won't take you a long time to do P6 actually. It's very straightforward, very easy. So I'm going to take attendance right now because it's almost time. So please hit present. So all of you hit present for attendance. Yep. Please, we're almost down to the end here. Do not forget that you got 2 homework due this coming Monday, which is P5 and P6. And then on Tuesday, you have a test. You will have a midterm test, which is chapter P. We'll go from P1 to P6. Yes, it includes the distance and the midpoint formula. So it does include till here. So it does include this kind of questions. It'll be around like 15, 16 questions. It's not a lot, but it's going to take you an hour and a half to do it. If you have, again, please make sure you check your work, because once you submit your test, you only submit it 1 time. So when you email it to me, that's it, final. You cannot resubmit again your test to me. Oh, David, I did question 5 wrong. Can I redo it? This is a new question 5. I will tell you, don't do it, because I will still take your previous submission. So make sure that you guys, when you submit, make sure it's really finals. Okay, not doing. Adam, the Zoom meeting videos is in D2L, so it's posted in D2L. It is there. It is there. So let me show it to you, D2L. So you go to D2L. Make sure you click on my class. This is the class. You click on it, and it is over here. See all the Zoom meetings, they're all here. Okay, they're all in here. And then it show all. So make sure you're gonna find out a bit more old ones. You just click so you get all this one. Yep. So the Zoom meeting is all over here. Same thing in your test. I will also put under announcement. So the test I will email to you in your school email. I also put it under announcement here, so you guys can download it and print it off if you need to, and then write on it. Okay. So make sure you guys know how to do it. Okay, the Zoom is all over there. It's all always in this side. Anyone have any questions for me before we stop this this Zoom session here? You guys have questions, you can go. This is the end of it. And Zach, I need to talk to you. Make sure you guys hit present. Yep, for those who are doing don't forget to for the present piece. I'm gonna stop recording.